Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah ma ba'd. This is podcast number 1 for the students at TISA. Did we come up with a name for the students or the student council? I guess not yet.
We had some clever ones, but...
We had many suggestions.
Alhamdulillah.
Progressive traditionalists, but anyway.
So we'll go around and introduce ourselves. My name is Anwar Arafat. I'm a graduate student here at TISA. I work on the side as an imam at a masjid, and I teach Islamic studies. And then I will go ahead and go ahead, Fatima.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Fatima Razvi, and I am also a graduate student here at TISA.
All right, next we have Manu.
I'm Manu Bansal, and I reside right now in Toronto, Ontario, in Canada. Also taking a master's degree program at TISA. I currently am by profession an eye doctor, but I really love taking these courses, and I really hope to graduate with a degree here.
And then next we have Jumana.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Jumana Saada, and I am a graduate student also, and I at TISA, and I work in student affairs at a university, but I also really enjoy taking these Islamic classes on the side and hope to continue to make progress towards my degree here.
Awesome. And then next we have Brother Jawed.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Jawad Ibrahim. Like everyone, I'm a graduate student as well. I've been with TISA since the beginning. My day job is in IT. This is my passion, learning Islamic knowledge. I'm from the Texas area.
Awesome. And last but not least, we have Brother Omar.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Umar Al-Ani in Memphis, Tennessee, Islamic studies teacher. Third year student at TISA, inshallah, busting through it soon, inshallah, bi'idhnillah.
Inshallah, awesome. It's great to have you guys all here, and thank you guys for taking out time, and meeting. So we wanted to discuss, I guess, like a kind of a preview for this upcoming semester. We just started the fall semester. We have a few classes on the docket. Some are more on the tame side, some are more on the controversial side. YQ's class, which is, I think, what's the official title? Gender, Islam, and Gender and Sexuality?
Islam and Gender in the...
Islam.
Islam and gender.
Islam and Gender
Islam and
in
gender.
the contemporary context.
There is no ijma on the course title.
There's no... Exactly.
There's ijma and other stuff.
No, it's Islam and Gender in the contemporary context, per the syllabus.
So I was gonna say, what do you guys think of the class so far? We got done with the first weekend intensive. What are y'all's thoughts on the class? And don't hold back, please. I know there's a lot of thoughts and ideas.
Silence.
Nobody wants to go on the record. It's okay. This is a safe place. Except that it's going to live on the internet forever.
So on the record, I think this class is an important class, and I'm glad to have Dr. Julie Lowe come into TISA to teach this class and to help us learn about gender and sexuality and gender studies. I think it's an important thing for us to understand as Muslims so that we can, intellectually engage the people of today from an Islamic perspective. I will say, I think it's kind of disappointing that Sheikh Yasser doesn't step away from this and do another class on the side. For us, that would be something that I would wish he would do for us, if this ever came around again. And maybe just let Dr. Julie teach this class on her own and let him come in and do, guest lectures here and there. I think he has a lot to offer, and I don't think he should simply be doing part-time teaching with one class a semester. That's my input.
Omar, I think that was a very polite way of sidelining Sheikh Yasser.
Let's go,
there.
bro.
Just let Dr. Julie Lowe teach it. Right?
No.
Wait.
No,
what do you
honestly,
mean?
everything he mentioned was needed and it was very appreciated. It's not that he was not appreciated. I'm just saying, Sheikh Yasser, that's like putting this class on the same level as the Quran class and Aqidah and Hadith and spirituality, and how many students could benefit from having one of those classes being done again right now?
Yeah, but I really think this is a super important class.
I think we need somebody like Sheikh Yasser in a class like this. And honestly, on a more serious note, I think like we've all been talking about, there are a number of important issues that we all have. We know that there's issues when it comes to inheritance. We know that there's a number of gender issues that come up, not just with inheritance, but also in terms of testimony. We've been talking about a number of issues that we find being unequal, some established in the Quran and Sunnah, and others established by the scholarship that's come before us. And just grappling with those issues, I think this class is an important one to at least navigate those and try to get some plausible answers to those, at least understand our tradition better, while we kind of understand that, times have changed, but at the same time, we still have a need to be true to our tradition.
I would kind of push back a little on the phrasing of the beginning of what you said, Banu, because I don't think that there are issues with something like inheritance. I think there are questions that can be easily answered, but sometimes we just we don't have the framework for it. I mean, I think this class is really, really, really important. I think it's on par with the other classes that Omar mentioned.
Absolutely, and I agree with you on it being important, but I will push back on that offline.
Please go for it.
We need to give for the audience who Dr. Julie Love is, right?
Yeah.
We all know who Sheikh Yasser is, so I'm just reading off her bio. Dr. Julie Love has ijaza in the 10 variant recitation of the Quran. She has both Sughra and Kubra, mashallah, from Sheikh Uthman Khan, and she studied Jazaria and so Shatibiya. So she has multiple recitations as well. She memorized the whole Quran from the recitation of Hafs and Shoba. And of course, she's from Canada, Manu, so your hometown. And the last, mashallah, so she has completed her PhD at the University of Toronto in the area of Islamic law. So, mashallah, she comes with both the traditional knowledge and the so-called contemporary knowledge as well.
And just to kind of bring that more closer to home, I had the pleasure of going to Ilm Summit with, my wife and I both attended Ilm Summit at the same time that she was attending, and that was back in, if I had to venture a guess, probably around 2009, 2008, around there. And so we got to know her when she was just finishing off memorizing the Quran for the first time before she went into the Qur'an. And she's always been a humble person, always wanting to learn, always being forthcoming in terms of presentations, and always being forefront in making sure that she not only gets knowledge, but she also imparts it onto others. So she's been amazing and phenomenal from that angle too.
And she remembered you guys.
Absolutely.
MashaAllah. So, that's what I was saying. Does she need Sheikh Yasser? No, I'm just kidding.
Did you sense the amount of pushback you were going to get on that,
I
Omar?
can't believe, Fatima, on record, you wanted to say that there's easy answers to it. Really?
For inheritance? Absolutely.
Of all people, 5 minutes ago, you had major faith
No.
issues.
Okay, let's be clear. It wasn't about inheritance. I have... Okay, hold on. I'm going to phrase this properly, okay? I have questions, and...
Easy answers too.
No. Inheritance, I think, has a completely easy answer. I have no problems understanding it, alhamdulillah. I know other people do, and that's something that I think... There's a reason that I think this class is important. Number one, it's because it's such a hot topic. We're not discussing only men and women. We're discussing trans people. We're discussing binary people. There are things that come up in our lives that I don't even know where Islam stands on some things. And a lot of us don't, especially people who are younger. Not that we're old, but, especially people who are Gen Z. They don't know anything. And we're not teaching this stuff. And
wait, I didn't know that this was going to turn into bashing on intergenerational No, I'm just kidding.
Is that not what we always do as like millennials? Is that not our
Fatima has a
job?
really good reason and explanation for it that's very easy.
Okay, no, inheritance I don't think is a big problem. There are other things I have
But
questions
someone
on.
else will have a problem with the
but
whole
honestly,
And that's my
even the
point. That's
question
why
of
we need the
inheritance,
class.
it only works when you look at it as like a whole system, right? Like if you're talking about like a nuclear family, like, okay, fine, whatever. But like when you zoom out and you're like, oh, the uncle and the aunt and the like in-laws and the, you know, whoever, like the system works because it's a whole system. But then someone else might argue, a lot of us don't live in that kind of traditional setting anymore. And so should those rules be revisited? Because a lot of people don't live in multi-generational communities anymore as a byproduct of the modern world, which we currently live in. A lot of us live in nuclear families, right? And so what does that look like? And when you look at work distribution and homes and stuff like that, and the fact that most families in the US are two-income households and, you know, are often of the same level of income earning and stuff like that. So I agree with you. Like, it's not like there's a way to discuss these things, but to Manu's point, I think some people will have questions about the inheritance rules, but also just we've talked about how important it is to have like a hive, right? To have a place where we can actually discuss these questions, can do some back and forth, and not just encounter it in the world and then, you know, have to rationalize it to other people with our own rationalization, but maybe someone else has a better rationalization that just we haven't heard of. And so I know that I've done that with my peers and my friends, like Fatima and I have done that before. But it's really, really helpful when you're in a community and you can discuss those things together.
So I absolutely, yeah, exactly. I absolutely agree with that. Where you know, there's certain things that we are going to face in society. Like Fatima mentioned, like you're gonna have to face LGBTQ. We're going to be facing those kind of issues, and the point is that we all have a gist that Islam probably says it's not condoned for the most part. But the question is, how grounded are those things, and how watertight are they? And I think that's the best part of learning this material, to know that. So we know what there's give and take in and what there is a red line in. And I think that's what's really important to get out of this course.
Yeah, no, that's very good. Any other thoughts on this course? I know.
I mean, how much time do you have?
There. No,
Wait,
some of
why
the
don't we-
topics can be very
why don't we-
uncomfortable.
I was
and
gonna- I was gonna
I keep
say-
on thinking. Go ahead.
Anwar, can you just introduce some of like the big questions for people who may be listening to this later on, inshallah?
I mean, a bigger question for me might not be that big for someone else. And
No,
you
like
know,
all
what I
the
think is not
questions
that-
we might be covering.
All opinions are
all the
equally valid
questions around
here.
gender. Yeah, how long? No, I'm just kidding. I mean,
I
the
don't
thing
know.
is, Sheikh Yasser said, you know, he keeps on repeating, you know, that idea. There are no easy answers. You know what I mean?
No,
There's
I
a
mean,
lot
like
to
the
think through.
contentions.
There's a lot to.
You know,
Go ahead. What's on your mind?
nothing is on my mind. I'm saying, can somebody? Nobody's introduced what maybe the contentions would be that we'd cover in this class. That's what I'm saying.
I'm going to throw one out right now. Let's talk about how, for instance, when a woman witnesses something such as robbery, or even somebody who is committing rape, for instance, why their testimony would not apply when it comes to applying the hudud punishments. Something like that is, I think, really interesting. Even though we were told that it's not directly in the Quran, it's not directly in the Sunnah, but it is part of ijma, and us following our Rasul is very important. But when things like that clash in the modern society, then how much can we kind of look at it as being historicized or coming from a certain type of environment, and how much of that can we actually rethink through and develop, kind of like a new fiqh, maybe even some elements of usul being, looked at again in the times that we live in. And would it even be worth it to do that? And how many people would actually accept doing that? I know this sounds a little progressive, but that's the whole point. If you go down this route of historicizing, then you have the potential of losing your faith. So that's definitely a question to grapple with. That are you going to just remain at a point where things are just unequal in society? Our tradition just is incompatible with our times? Or will we say that there might be a little bit of give and take that we can do with our usul, and not just our usul, but even with the fiqh that we apply and don't apply.
Okay, I think we can wrap it up. Sheikh Yasser is going to kill us all, and like.
And that's why I say
Don't send this to
that
him.
we should be progressive traditionalists.
See, I don't know. I don't know if you can actually define that because
I can. That look,
how? What does it
practice
mean?
traditionalism to the T because Allah told us to. But certain issues that bother us in our hearts, we can overlook knowing that we could change it. There's the potential of change. We just don't do it in our times because it can cause trouble. And that's enough with me. That up here, there's progressivism. But in my practice and who I am, in terms of wanting to maintain my Islam and my religion and my practice, that the best thing to do, what's more wise, is to just follow the tradition how it is.
So actually, Manu, I feel like we also have historic precedent for doing that because, one, we know that throughout the 1400 years, we've had some movement on certain issues and the way things were applied, first of all. But then also, if you go back way to the beginning with Umar ibn al-Khattab, radiallahu anhu, it was like that was also one of the narrations that was shared in class yesterday, right? Where the whole cultural difference between Mecca and Medina and how like the wives would interact with their husbands, and then like his wife like argued back with him, and he was like, wait, like what? Like you mean my daughter does this too? So he like went to Hafsa radiallahu anha, and she was like, yeah, I also argue back. And he was like, what do you mean you argue back? So
that's
like,
the point,
you know,
that we
yeah.
know that there's things where it's the wife needs to be obedient, but at the same time then you have those narrations that talk about how even the Prophet ﷺ had some of the wives not even speak to him for a full day, and they admit to this, that yeah, we did this. But it's not like the Prophet ﷺ saying, well, you're going to go to the hellfire for this. So obviously there's a little bit of give and take, and that's the whole point. There's the narrations, then there's a practice, and then there's also the difference between the woman of Mecca and the woman of Medina. Now, when times have changed so significantly in our times, for instance, how much can we say that there's maybe a greater give and take?
So I keep coming back to what Dr. Gray taught us last semester in our fiqh class, because it was just, it kind of, like, I feel like that should be the way that it's done, but it's just not, because, like, what, 800, 1,000 years ago, we hit a wall, we said, this is it, it's set in stone, it's super rigid, and we're not going to go past it. But what she taught us was, there was a scholar, there was a mufti, and he moved to a different city. And he was invited to whatever city, whatever other city it was, to be a mufti for that location. And he went there, but for a certain period of time, and I'm forgetting what the period of time, might have been a year, might have been less, he refused to give fatwas. And the reason being, he said, I don't know this community well enough to give fatwas. I can't do it until I know the community. And if that's the case for, somebody who lived in the same empire, I don't believe that the location was far from where he used to live. And now we're, 1,000 years, so we're not even different, we're not even distanced geographically, we're distanced in time. And we're distanced a lot more geographically than they were. And so, like, we keep hitting this stone wall, and I don't understand why it's so unacceptable. And I kind of understand, because Sheikh Yasser explained it yesterday, but I kind of don't. And it's just like, you come to the same place, and it's like, okay, well, I can't go past this.
Let me put one more thing out there before we're all labeled progressive. All right. So another dimension that we have to look at with this whole thing is that, yes, there's modern notions of what constitutes gender equality, what is the proper form of sexuality, and things like that. But what we need to also understand is that before we start historicizing the Islam, before we think that something needs to be changed in Islam, what if the times we live in are not the best way to be? What if that's not going to be wise? And that's the whole point. There's an element in Islam that we always want to recognize that, Allah is all wise in the end of the day. And that's exactly why I say that remaining traditional, following Islam how it should be, deferring it to the scholars who know better, and we practice in that manner is always important. While in our heart, this information and knowledge is supposed to at least give us that ability to be more sound, to know that, yes, I know things are a little unequal, but maybe there are ways around it. It's just, maybe the society right now is not ready for it, and in some ways, at the same time, maybe there's a wisdom that we don't know of that only Allah knows.
Absolutely.
Let me finish up with a question for the group, right? Pretty much most of us here have multiple courses taken, and some of us are since the beginning, right? Is there any point in time that once the course has been completed, that your iman is shaken, that you wish you haven't taken the course? Did any one of us have that feeling?
Who wants to go first? I'm just kidding.
I mean, alhamdulillah, that's not true for me, but...
I was going to add something. There seems to be a challenge throughout every era. I mean, especially when you read how scholars interacted and reacted with the challenges of their times, right? It seems to be that there were challenges during every era that the scholars had to face where they simply had to, at some point, submit to a higher authority and say simply, I don't know why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated this. Every time. Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah, very famously, he said multiple times, like, I have no idea, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But at the end of the day, sami'na wa ata'na. You know, we hear and we obey, we're just going to continue going through. There is at some point, you're going to reach, you're always, because I think ultimately, for us to think that we can rationalize everything that we encounter is, aslan, we don't even do that in our own lives. I don't rationalize why I like certain foods or why I prefer, one thing over the other. Those are subjective experiences, of course. But when it comes to the religion, I think a lot of times we try to rationalize everything that Allah has legislated. Now, this is not to say that there is not a rationality behind it. It's just that we might not have access to that rationality at this given time. And this is why a lot of those scholars will say, like, I toiled with this issue for 30 years until I figured it out. What he's talking about is that he couldn't really understand the wisdom behind that legislation until certain things came to light for him, right? But in the meantime, he's just going along with what the text says, with what Allah has said, with what the Messenger has said. And I think sometimes that's the challenge. Can we do that with things that it might be hard to wrap our heads around now, that we might figure out later? This is not to say that khalas, you just don't question the religion at all. No. Nobody's saying this. You can question, we should, and this is why this class is important, right? But I don't think we're going to be able to answer everything, and I think Sheikh Yasir has said this explicitly about the class. We're not going to answer everything. We can't, but we can at least start on that journey. We might be able to answer it very later on. And the thing is, everything needs to be contextualized, and I don't think when we ask these questions, we're putting them in the proper context, at least historically. So
Anwar, I'm 100% agreeing with your comment, and also adding that I'm fairly certain that I've heard Yasir Khalid say that in reference also to evolution. Like, we are encouraged as Muslims to critically engage and think about the world around us, and that is something we are charged to do, to learn and educate ourselves and be involved and be caretakers of the world and all that entails. And then also, to some degree, these issues aren't why we're Muslim. So at some level, if you run up against a wall, then you're just okay, this ultimately is not the deciding factor as to what is making me be Muslim. I'm not Muslim because of our stance on evolution or whatever. I'm Muslim because I believe in, there is only one God and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his messenger. So thank you for bringing that up. Also, I think, Fatima, you were trying to say something earlier, so... Oh,
yeah, no, thank you. I was just going to say that at some level, we're all Iraqi, and at some level, we're not. And that's a throwback to our hadith class, because we talked about the hadith where somebody asked a question to another scholar, and they said, why is this the way it is? And he said, are you Iraqi? And we were all like, what does that mean? And Jonathan Brown explained it to us. He said that means that in Iraq at the time, they reasoned through things, and there's another camp that didn't. And it's continuing till today in the hadith tradition, right? Where you have camps that say, well, this hadith just literally makes no sense.
That was the exact one. When Javed asked that question, I'm like, that's the only thing that came to mind. No, it wouldn't make me not take the class. It doesn't, bring them in doubt or anything, but I thought it was interesting. And you know what? It really relates to the gender course right now too, where it's the compensation for finger and Maliki fiqh being up to the equivalent of what was it, 1/3 the compensation, or sorry, it was I don't know if someone else remembers it.
1/3, because it was 10, 20, 30.
Yeah, so,
and then it was
the compensation for a woman's finger being 10 camels, 10 camels, 10 camels, so 30. But on the fourth finger, it ends up being 20. And that's what the question was in that narration in the Muwatta, right?
He was like, why is it less
He's like,
for
why
4
would it be
fingers
less
than
for
3?
4? And he's literally
Yeah.
questioning things the way we would question it too. And that's where he asked, are you Iraqi? Insinuating that maybe he's being more rational on this. Well, and then he answers, well, this is our tradition.
Yeah, just to point out, Omar is Iraqi, so that just
Yeah, I had to.
Of course he is.
I was gonna say, Omar, cover your ears.
I'm Iraqi. You guys aren't Iraqi.
No, at the end of the day, I think that if our iman in our faith was in doubt, God forbid, and I don't think that we should be so arrogant to think that it can never happen. There's a reason there's a dua for it. But if we weren't Muslim, we wouldn't care about any of this. Like, the reason that I have concerns and questions is because I believe that this is the right religion and it comes from God. And I believe in the Prophet to be the last Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so, in that case, I care because I think this is the real deal. I could easily dismiss it if I didn't care, I could be like, well, this is just not the right religion.
yeah.
I'm gonna defer to Omar on this one for maybe something on annihilation.
Oh my god. Don't bring up Fenat.
I think you're the one who made culture disappear.
and Keshta
Wait, you made culture disappear?
that was.
I
don't think I remember
final
this one.
paper.
Culture doesn't exist, bro. No, I'm just I'm just kidding.
No, culture is a social construct. Everything is a social construct. Is that
Social
what
construct.
Listen, race is a social
Actually,
construct.
culture was developed in a room by some people. The idea of it.
I thought you were going to say it was developed in a lab. And it has mRNA.
Yeah, subhanallah.
Race is a social construct, and also defund the police.
Yep.
Aywa.
Oh, now we're getting controversial. We're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
That's the whole
Actually, I was
point.
going to ask you guys.
There's no
how
really
did you
no
guys-
other reason to
how did
bring it
the
up.
how did the mass how did it go for you guys at the end? The mass incarceration class.
I mean,
That was
You guys
good.
get
That
good
was
grades?
Yeah.
I was still bogged down by Dr. James Jones cutting me off in my presentation and making it clear that I should not bore my professors.
I was
That is
offended
my
on
one
your
take home
behalf,
from
if
that
it's
course.
any consolation.
You lack nuance, Manu.
Oh my god! I know. I've been told that before.
Hey man, you didn't get a B on your self introduction first class ever.
Ouch.
Wow, that one surprised
That's gotta
me.
hurt. How do you fail a self-introduction?
Sheikh Yasser, in his first class, oh man, this is funny. Sheikh Yasser in his first class asked to give an introduction, right? And I believe Salman, one of the brothers, actually misspelled Sheikh Yasser's name, and he kind of submitted it.
That's hilarious.
Ouch.
Oh man.
Sheikh
That's
Yasser
why
is
you
funny.
always Google things. Like, never ever. Just like, always double check.
What about if it's your own name, Jumana?
Oh,
Then go to your email and copy it from your email.
Jumana's like, what's my name? Jum'a. What's the other one?
Jumana Mubarak.
Okay, but in my defense, J is not a common letter. Like, it's not a common sound that, like, people
Jawed
use.
would beg to
Yeah, I'm
differ.
still there in the call.
I mean, Jawed, do you feel that way? Like, I feel like I don't know that many
I
people
thought he
with
was.
J's.
I thought he was basically Fana Wujudi over there, right?
Oh no.
You can't just insert something like that where it doesn't belong. Come on, Manu,
Like,
we're
I'm just
done
gonna
with the spirituality
put
class.
in here.
Just nobody reach Kashfir, okay? We don't need that right
Yeah.
now.
No.
Hey, Kush could be amazing. I'm just saying.
the other day, I was preparing a class to do tafsir on Surah Al-Ikhlas, and oh my gosh, I was reading through Al-Razi, and he went through a whole fanat thing and explaining Surah Al-Ikhlas, and I was like, no, this is bringing back so much.
No.
I was like, no, I'm gonna close
Bad
this one.
memories.
I'm gonna go to the next tafsir. I'm not gonna.
But
Where's
in all
Qurtubi?
honesty,
Where's
like,
Qurtubi? I need
Ibn
Qurtubi.
Qayyim, the Madarij was beautiful, and I'm so happy that Sheikh Yasser had us read all of it, because it was it was not I've never experienced that. Like, I don't think I've ever read
I
anything
think we should
at
have
that level.
kept just the Madarij for that.
I agree with that. I agree. We should have another class for ethics, but it's not something that I would have ever picked up. And it was an experience.
The Madarij, honestly, is like literally the religion. It goes
Yes,
through every
exactly.
concept. It goes through Aqidah, it goes through even elements of fiqh in it. It goes through... It's just an amazing book. It had me annihilated.
You're a believer, finally!
One of my wife's cousin, he started giving khutbah, and he was asking me for the materials. I just gave him the Madarij and just go. Just take one, just close your eyes, take one section out of it. There you go. That's your khutbah.
That's your khutbah right there.
No, but we're talking about like every difficult problem in like Aqidah as well, right? Like, why is there evil? Why is there the existence of shaitan? When Allah knew, why create something like that? Just amazing how Ibn al-Qayyim is able to grapple with those issues. And like, you come out of that course. That's the one course I'll tell you. I came out of it with no problems. No issues there. Only answers, in fact, of things I didn't know.
I mean, just his level of detail and oh my god, the lists, those I will have nightmares about. It was like lists within lists within lists, and at some point I'm like, wait, what is this list about again?
Too many
and
tangents.
You go back
Yeah,
and you
too
can't
many
find the beginning.
tangents. Yeah. I got lost so many times. Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know. I was
Thank you
not
for
a
bringing
big
that
fan
back
of
to
the
the top of my
translation
mind.
either.
I had put that out of the top section of my brain, and now I'm
so
like,
sorry.
oh gosh, I remember that. Just like endless funnel.
It was like, okay, so we're going to talk about the reasons why God created shaitan. And then, 300 pages later, you're in, some sub-list of something that I don't know is somehow connected to the... Oh, my God.
Guys,
Still
I have
amazing.
a conspiracy theory.
I honestly liked it.
Oh, wow.
It was so complicated.
Is that where we've come to?
No. I
Conspiracy
think
theories.
Sheikh Yasser has got his tangents from reading all these. Ibn al-Taymiyyah. They all go in tangents. I think Sheikh Yasser has read this.
Yeah, they do.
Sure,
But the
sure.
thing is, back in the
That's
day,
good.
Tangents were not seen as problematic as they are now.
Neither was plagiarism.
That's true.
That's
Shots
true.
No,
fired.
I'm telling you, I think Sheikh Yasser said this
But
in
it's
one of his
because they
classes.
weren't writing.
He was
so
like,
the thing is,
people would just
plagiarism is
take
only
it.
an issue because there's money involved.
Or no, I mean, I wouldn't want my intellectual property stolen, even if I'm not getting paid for it.
I think it's mainly because we've made it financially incentivized.
But even
that's
still,
my theory.
I think it was Sheikh Yasser who also said that it wasn't until like Ibn Taymiyyah who was just made it a point to reference where he's getting his stuff from.
Yeah.
Sheikh al-Islam.
Also, Javed, I really think that you should bring that up in the next class. Be like, this is my hypothesis, Sheikh Yasser. Can you confirm or deny?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is
Any other
definitely
thoughts
also
on
the
other
difference.
classes this semester?
Have you guys taken the Islam in America?
I'm taking Islam in America. I think I'm the only
Very
one here
good
taking
class.
it, right?
You're gonna really like that class. That class
very,
is
very,
just
very good
amazing.
class.
Like, because it really goes through the whole issue of race and how linked it is with establishing the Muslim community in America. And I think just going through those popular figures like Malcolm X, reading through Malcolm X's biography, learning about Martin Luther King, all of those things that we're really a person who lives in the West should know these things. And we should be taught elements, what is racism, what is prejudice, and know how to overcome these issues. And it's just amazing how all of that ties into our own heritage and our own establishment in America. And I think it's just phenomenal learning those things. I think you're going to really like it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Who's teaching that class?
It's Dr. James Jones. It's Dr.
Rula Alouche.
Yeah, exactly. Rola Alouche. And there's one more.
Imam
Imam
Hamza's
Hamza.
not involved. He's not involved anymore, is he?
No, I don't know.
He was previously. I'm not sure if he still is. Or
Yeah, I don't think he's teaching it this semester.
Interesting.
But no, Omar, number one, I think you're going to really love the course, but what really stood out to me was how many different waves of Muslim groups came to America. So we're not the descendants, obviously we're not the descendants of people who came here when America or before America was even established. The people who were enslaved were not their descendants. But there was another wave in the early 20th century, and there was another wave in the 60s and the 70s. These are all different groups. and we've come together, and like you see the beginning of like ISNA and how it was like the students that formed it, and this is stuff that exists today that we live in. And so it's beautiful to even recognize some of the names and to just understand why we are the community that we are today.
Or even just looking at the same narrations of or the past on certain things that have happened, like for instance on the Sapel Islands, right? Where it's like one group of people will see these same slaves as apostating, and when you look at the narration, it can actually be seen as them trying to keep their faith. So it's interesting how you can approach it from two different angles with the same type of narration as well.
And also something about the what's the group? What's the conspiracy group?
Which one?
The like the Knights Templars. Like something about them and how because of them, Islam, like the Nation of Islam, came into being. I don't remember. There was some. Yeah, there was some connection there. The Moorish Science Temple.
Yeah.
That was weird to read.
Yeah. The one that I liked was, seeing when those waves that you were talking about, Fatima, came to the States, and they only started building masajid once their families came. You know what I mean? That it was the women who pushed them to build the centers I thought that was interesting because a lot of the guys would just kind of get together and do whatever. But then once they actually had wives and kids and stuff, and they realized, okay, we have to educate these people, we have to do a Sunday school. That was the incentive to build those first masajid that opened up in like the 1930s.
Yeah, prior to that, when you had the first like early 20th century wave come in, it was they came here with the intention of making money and going back home. So there was no idea of like we want to settle down. And so yeah, you're right. Like it's such an interesting history, and it's not something I ever learned before.
I mean, it's also really interesting to study then how sociology plays into it, because like the role of like having wives and children and how that establishes you in a community and makes you like, have roots and actually become an established presence, as opposed to just what is also a known phenomenon where people will move somewhere to make money and then they move home. Like that concept of migration is also one that is present. I thought it was really interesting to talk about the different waves of immigrants, but also how very much established within U.S. history like racism is. And it like when you look at it in that short term of a course, right? Like that's just over a few weeks long. You really get a sense of, when you're looking at our 400 or 500 year history, how much it like actually is like embedded within the culture, and how every group that came, the goal was to become white so that it continued to like entrench this concept of racism, and how that still plays out today. Like that also was a really important thing to study and to learn how we've benefited from it, and also how Islamophobia is still a huge part of it.
Yeah, no, Jemana, along those lines, how groups that came in basically pushed other groups under the bus to prosper, because they were like, yeah, we're not you're darker than us, and also we're white, even though we're not really white. And it was just like, it was so interesting. It was, they were basically like, there were court cases where you had Indian people coming into the country who were migrating here, and they recognized how important race was. So they went to court to argue that they were white. And they won in some cases. And in other cases, the judge was basically like, look at you, you're not white. Basically, that was his reason. He was like, that's my decision. You're not white. Look at you. And it was just this, like, it was a game. That's why we say it's a social construct.
But I mean, and we still, like, those things, it's really important to understand that we still benefit from them in a lot of ways, and it like that is still reality, right? Like when people talk about like something that is institutionalized or that's baked into the system, and so like there's a reason why, like in the census, like Middle Eastern North African is still listed as being under the category of white. And actually now there's like a concerted effort to get that divorced because those statistics don't actually accurately represent like the MENA group. And so like that's its whole own like social movement at this point that is trying to happen. So that was a really good course to understand like the society that we live in, you know?
No, you'll enjoy the class, inshallah, Omar.
Inshallah.
We'll look forward to hearing your thoughts like throughout the course and inshallah at the end of the semester.
Inshallah, no, anything that Dr. Jones touches, mashallah, is very life-changing, mashallah. At least in my experience.
Yeah, Dr. Jones is great.
Anyone who's learned under him will find him to be inspiring. Will also find that his one-on-ones with you are always quite personal to make sure that you always, not just realize your full potential, not in a cliched way, but really just become a better person overall. And I think he really does that for me.
I mean, he helps us add nuance to our lives, is all I'm going to say.
or at least tells us when we lack it, right?
MashaAllah.
I don't know. I have Dr. Jones' cell phone number. I mean, he is the only faculty.
Yeah.
I just ping him whenever I have some question, and he.
Yes, it's wonderful, and he's so quick to respond. Mashallah, like
He is. He's on top of it.
He's so helpful.
May Allah bless him and all of us from him.
I mean,
We also have the Imam and Chaplains function class with Sheikh Umar Bajwa, inshallah, from Yale. He's the chaplain at Yale. I'm looking forward to that. I think it's good to have a class like that kind of talks about what imams do and what chaplains do. I think it's an important thing for people to understand. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of like development involved in the class itself, inshallah.
and there's also the fiqh class with Dr. Gray, which I'm also excited about because it's specializing, because we took usul al-fiqh last semester. Usul al-fiqh and the evolution of fiqh.
Oh, Dr. Gray is awesome. I really like her.
I just want to mention that anybody who's listening in over here should really consider not only becoming a student if they have the ability to do so, but even if you are not going to be a degree-seeking student, TISA has the option for you to just go ahead and audit a class, meaning just attend a class without seeking a degree, have access to the readings, submit assignments for a pass or fail if you wanted to, and at least get the knowledge out of here. And you'll get a reading list. You'll be able to follow along. You'll be able to learn a lot. You'll be able to ask those questions that you always wanted to ask, and you'll be able to see the other questions that are being imposed in class as well, that you may not have thought of yourself, and realize are actual pressing questions that are out there. So I encourage anybody out there to go ahead and participate in TISA to whatever extent you can, and knowledge can only be beneficial.
And I would just add, I mean, if money is the problem, right? MashaAllah, the financial aid department in TISA is amazing. Money shouldn't prevent you from acquiring knowledge. That simply shouldn't be. So if money is a problem for someone, they can always reach out to the financial aid and get that one waived off. They are nice about it.
Yeah, no, TISA has been an answer to a question I didn't know I had. I genuinely, I have been wanting to seek this knowledge for a while, but I didn't know it. And then TISA just kind of like fell out of the sky. And like, obviously, it's like fate and it's, it was meant to fall out of the sky. But then I realized that it was created or founded literally a semester before I found it. And I was like, this is like, subhanAllah, like, where has this been? And it really is something that doesn't really exist anywhere else. It just, there is the level of quality, the material that we cover, and the fact that we have our professors telling us, you know what, there really might not be an easy answer to this, is so sincere and so beautiful, because sometimes we don't want things to be sugar-coated. And if you're in grad school, you don't really want to be sugar. You don't want to be spoon-fed things. And they very, very much do not spoon-feed you.
And I was just going to add that it goes without saying that when you join a program like this, you end up being part of a network of amazing students out there who all connect with each other. All of us, have a WhatsApp group that we speak on. All of us point out our ideas. We talk about our issues. We talk about the fun things that happen in the class, and we also talk about all the other problems we might think of, and approach even some of the professors as a class to get answered. And it's just having that group of people, especially during this time of COVID as well. It's just been really nice to have that kind of interaction. And believe me, just having a group of people to look up to, or even people who think at the same wavelength as you, it's a blessing in and of itself.
I would definitely echo the having that hive or community from people who are all over the U.S. and Canada. Like we have a Canadian on the call.
We need some Mexicans
many
now.
Canadians in class too, and growing.
We need some
does not like
I just
Tim
meant
Hortons,
like
so I'm
within,
not sure
within
that
the
he's actually
population,
Canadian.
but the best kind of neighbors you can have. But really truly, like for me that's a huge part of taking classes at TISA, because like sure, you can listen to classes on YouTube and like engage with them that way, and those classes are awesome, and I'm not disparaging them, because mashallah, like they're super necessary. But this is fulfilling a different need, where it's like where you are actually participating in a traditional classroom setting, and you're actually able to engage with your classmates and build relationships across communities too, and which only can help strengthen and uplift Muslims ultimately, inshallah.
Yeah, and most of us, right? This is a part-time, right? Look at us. I mean, we have professional lives. We have a 9-to-5 job. We study after 5 p.m. I mean, inshallah, most of us are in the same way. I would just add that the next generation, man, subhanallah, my kids. Look at the content we covered in the past couple of semesters. We studied about evolution last semester from an Islamic standpoint, mashallah. This semester we are studying about feminism. I'm just saying that I want to be able to talk to my children, and these are the questions that they're going to ask me one day. So I'm hoping what I can get out of this is a meaningful conversation, so that my kids will still hold on to their religion in this country.
Inshallah. I'm looking forward to podcasts, or episodes that we do in the future, inshallah. And I believe that we had discussed talking to students about their final paper topics and interesting research they've come across and what their topics are, because truly, like the final papers, I have been over and over and over again impressed by the quality, the level, and the topics chosen, the research done. It's been a real treat being in class to have all these discussions with my fellow classmates.
Alhamdulillah. Totally agree. We learn more from each other, I think, than we ever imagine or give credit to. So alhamdulillah wa shukr. Jazakumullah khair, everybody. Anwar, take it away.
So thank you all for listening and joining us, inshallah ta'ala, lending us an attentive ear. And we look forward to seeing you all, inshallah ta'ala, in the classes, engaging with us. And we'll see you guys later, inshallah.
Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.